Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Welcome, everybody, to episode 118 of Two Goalies, One Mic. I am Duane Steinel, joined shortly by my co-host, Johnny Cullen. But right now, we have John Lazarus from the Blue Crew Pod, Dump and Chase Pod, and, of course, works with Bleacher Report for the New York Rangers. Johnny, you've had quite the past year. How has it been, bud?
It's been mentally and physically exhausting, but also mentally and physically exciting. Every day is different, and it's been a lot of fun. And hockey's at the best point that I could ever remember, right? Like, this has definitely been the most exciting times I feel like to be a hockey fan. And the Eastern Conference teams like ours that we follow, the Sabres, the Rangers, are looking good and looking fun. So it's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, but one thing too, this past week, you've been kind of, not this past week, for a few months now, you've been on the Sabres bandwagon, but you went to bat for Buffalo this past week. You and Mr. Lazarus, after that very controversial goal call. It was no goal, then changed to a goal against the Islanders, and it just continues the question, like in football, what is a catch? What is a kicking motion? Because I played soccer for a big chunk of my life growing up before I made hockey a priority, and that was 1,000% a kicking motion to me.
I have a confession.
I don't want to hear it. No, you better not. You better not rescind.
So no, I'll never rescind. But so when I tweeted the video, I'd only seen the slow-mo version, and to me, in the slow-mo, it's like pretty clear that it's a kick. Later that night, after debating Islander fans for the entire day, my roommate showed me the full speed goal because I was at the Devils Leafs game that night, so I didn't get to watch the Islander Sabres game. And in full speed, I kind of agree with the call.
In full speed, when you slow it down.
Yeah, in full speed, I think to me it's more of a redirection than a kick. But like in slow-mo, I think it's a kick. But like, to that point, I could never take it back my comment. Like, I wouldn't tweet like, oh, I think that this is the right call, because like I would get destroyed. But after seeing the full speed, I like don't disagree as much as I did when I originally saw the goal. But
here's the thing. They looked at that call for well over 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
They had, I mean, I'm sure they're seeing different angles than we are. So when I watch that, like, people look to say, well, going off the shin, it went off his foot for it to be a kick against his foot. No, that's not necessarily true. I've played soccer for a long time. I've kicked balls off my shin before. It happens every single game of soccer that's ever existed. You kick balls off your shin. It happens. And you also, you don't kick a ball with the front of your foot. You kick it with your heel.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you kick a soccer ball. That's how you kick a kickball. That's how you kick, to a certain extent, a football. When a field goal, during a field goal kick, like. So for me, that whole argument, it went off his, it didn't go off his heel, it went up, whatever. Like, no, that was a kick to me. Slow down. You can clearly see his foot coming forward. To me, that was a kick. But I digress. I appreciate, as much as the rest of the Sabres fans, you coming to bat for us this past week, because that sucked.
I mean, I've been saying Sabres in the playoffs since like November, so. I'm really trying to get them going here. And what do? They let up a stinker of 10 goals the other night against Dallas. That one hurt.
Yeah, hurt is one word for it. They gave up. They gave up on their goalie. And the guy I went to bat for, Eric Comrie, I know anytime a goalie lets in 10 goals in a game, there's blame to go around, especially on them. But I don't know how anybody watching that game, and I'll bring up the heat map too if I can find it. Like, the heat map is absurd. They had 7 goals scored from below the dots, and that blue area of high danger scoring, from around the crease up until the top of the circles, there isn't any white on the heat map. It's all blue because that's where the majority of their 49 shots came from, was literally that area of the ice. And 7 of their 10 were scored from that area. And they had a 2-on-0 that started from the top of the faceoff circles. Comrie missed a poke check. The guy's probably dog-ass tired and just frustrated. Threw his stick out there hoping for anything. And he ended up missing, and they ended up scoring on a 2-on-0. But, I watch those goals, and I look at Sabres like, how can you blame your goaltender for that, man? Like, I get it. He's the guy that's supposed to stop the puck. But in terms of being left out to dry, they left Eric Comrie out to dry, and they gave up probably halfway through that third period. They gave up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't get to watch much of it. I had a men's league game, so I missed a lot of action that night. But yeah, man, the Sabres to me have been a really fun team to watch. Obviously, they're missing Alex Tuck right now. I do think goaltending is obviously their biggest question mark, but as far as scoring goals, they're totally fine. Their blue line has a pretty good future ahead of them. So, I'm not too concerned about the Sabres' future. I was hoping they could put it together right now and make the playoffs. It's kind of looking like that might not happen, but I'm not giving up hope yet.
No, and I'm not either. I mean, you lose 5 out of your last 6. Obviously, that one against the Islanders was a real killer.
Yeah.
Because that's a 4-point swing. You're fighting with them for a playoff spot. And then you have the Rangers tonight, and not a division game, but a team that loaded up at the deadline, which we're going to get into right now. And this is a must win for Buffalo. You have to win today, and obviously something you don't want to see happen. But just take us through what the Rangers did at the deadline. Your feelings towards it. I mean, it was the worst kept secret in the NHL. Patrick Kane to the New York Rangers. When they finally made that trade official, getting the greatest American-born hockey player ever is now a New York Ranger playing in the Big Apple. Your feelings about that, and just take us through that whole week.
I mean, the whole week. I remember hearing on Thursday night that it was happening, and then, I think it was actually a friend of mine, Stefan Rosner, who first reported it, that it was happening. And there were details to figure out and whatnot. And I just remember, I couldn't believe it. I've posted a lot of clips about it, and I've talked about it on a lot of shows, including mine. And, Patrick Kane, obviously, Tarasenko, incredible. We can't overlook that. What a great move by the Rangers to get Tarasenko. But there's something different about Patrick Kane. I grew up, I was in high school from 2010 to 2014. And in those years was, two Blackhawks Cups, right? That's when the Blackhawks really started to become a dynasty, which they are considered a dynasty. They won 3 cups in 5 years. They're definitely a dynasty. And, before every game, I used to watch 2 players' highlights, and that was Pavel Datsyuk and Patrick Kane. Mm-hmm. Not that I played either of them, but, those were the guys that I loved watching. They were fun. They were flashy. They had skill. They did everything. And Patrick Kane, it's one of those things where as we get older, we love hockey, we love rooting for our teams, but the players get younger and it becomes harder to relate. And going into Madison Square Garden and seeing number 88 on the Rangers, it made me feel like a kid again. I was at his MSG debut, and obviously it wasn't the night that we wanted, but I think that's what makes it so cool just for me is having this player that I idolized my entire life playing for my team. That's never really happened to me before. You can make the case for Carmelo Anthony, the Knicks, 'cause I was a huge Knicks fan, but I was still 16 or whatever when that happened, and I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. Rick Nash, another guy that he was a star when he came, but I didn't love Rick Nash before. So that was different as well. But I mean, I think back to just your original question, what the Rangers did and when I think about it, I don't think they risked so much. People want to say, their future could be in jeopardy or whatever. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But when they got Tarasenko and Kane for what they got them for, I think 31 other teams in the NHL would do the same exact thing. So, listen, are they built to win the cup? Do they have the best team to go do it? I don't know if that's the right puzzle piece per se to go win a Stanley Cup, because they have so much skill and now they just have to put the the physical play together and be a little harder to play against. But as far as talent goes, like, I can't name a more talented roster right now in the NHL than the Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, you're right there with the Bruins, right? Like, how much the East loaded up at the deadline. Well, not at the deadline, but throughout the week. It's scary, man. I mean, it's really anybody's game out of the West, man. Anybody can come out of the West. I don't really think you can look at one particular team and say they're the favorite, because, I mean, even what is it, Colorado, last year's champions, they're fighting for a wild card spot. They're a loaded team. I mean, Kel McCarr, I guess he's having a down year for his standards.
Well, he's been hurt and, and whatnot.
Yeah. But regardless, like, anybody can really come out of the West. It's really anybody's, game. But the East is just going to be a dogfight in that first round. I mean, who are the Rangers projected to get first, or as of right now, if it was going to end today?
The Devils.
The Devils? Dude, were you a Seinfeld guy?
No, I'm actually not. I probably should be, but I'm not. Huh?
What you need to do is you need to go watch the episode of Seinfeld where David Puddy, Elaine's boyfriend, it's called the Face Painter, and they get free tickets to a Rangers Devils playoff game on the boards. And her boyfriend, this guy David Puddy, who's really awkward. He talks just talks in a really monotone voice. Really key character of the show. Elaine invites him to come to the game. He's a huge Devils fan. He's wearing a Brodeur jersey. He comes out of the bathroom and he's literally wearing face paint. And they're all just like taken back, like, whoa, what is this? And he just fucking loses his mind at the game. Just like, to them, it's embarrassing because it's like they're not as avid sports fans as he is. And then Devils win after the game. A very high end like priest or priest from New York City is in a car, and he's crossing the street, and he looks at this priest in the face with his face paint on. He goes, "We're the Devils, yeah, we're the Devils!" And the guy literally has a heart attack, like right then and there. Honestly, an iconic episode. I'm not really giving it any justice, but definitely worth a watch, especially if that is how it all projects and pans out. Rangers Devils first round playoff matchup. You definitely have to watch it. It's phenomenal. But again, the Devils went out and got Timo Meier, the most sought after, probably next to Patrick Kane, at the deadline, most sought after player. And they even though I feel like the Rangers are more ready to win now than the Devils in that Metropolitan Division, they're going to be a team to be dealt with for a long time, especially if they lock up Meier long term.
I actually have the Devils to win the division. That was one of my futures bets. Right now, I put that in after the deadline, after the move they made. I think there was like plus 330 or whatever.
Yeah.
Not incredible odds, but they're right there with Carolina right now. But yeah, I think I still think that the Devils won the deadline. I think it was obvious Timo Meier was going to go there, but as far as like putting the right piece of the puzzle in place, like the Devils, getting Timo Meier, I think is like exactly what they needed.
Yeah.
Not just a skill guy, but a guy who's pretty physical and likes to mix it up a little bit, can score goals, and they have so many playmakers on that team. Like, he makes them so much better. I really do think that was what they needed, and they went out and got it. And for me, the Devils are a super scary team. And I posted a clip last week that got a lot of traction from Devils fans because I said, like, I'll say what Ranger fans are kind of afraid to say. Like, I'm afraid of the Devils.
You should be.
Yeah, but a lot of people are like saying, the Devils are the little brother of the Rangers and the Islanders or whatever, but like that's not the case at all. Since the Devils have been around, they've won the most in my lifetime. Out of the teams here, they've won 3 cups since I've been alive. So, not that has to do with anything today, but the Devils to me are a fun team to watch. They got a lot of talent, and Hughes, Bratt, Mercer's been like the hottest guy in the NHL.
He's really come on late, man.
Oh my God, yeah, but he screwed me the other night. I took over 2.5 shots. He didn't have 1 shot on goal, Dawson Mercer, and I know that's whatever, it's sports betting, but you'd think he had 14 shots on goal in the previous 2 games, he'd get 3, but
yeah,
not when I decided to pick him.
2, and honestly, like they getting Timo Meier from him, that's the right move. I think that's the kind of the move. mean, yeah, we as Sabres fans, we wanted to see the Sabres make a run at Timo Meier, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with what they did. I mean, they have the youth, they have the talent, they have talent that's ready to win now, plus talent in the pipeline on the roster right now that's going to have them loaded for the future. I mean, there was nothing wrong with what they did. And I mean, fans here in Buffalo just are so content with just sitting pat. And yeah, we're going to be good next year. I mean, if we don't make it this year, playoffs are definitely the expectation next year. But there would have been nothing wrong with Buffalo giving up some picks or prospects for a guy like Timo Meier, a guy, if you lock him up, obviously I feel like it would be contingent in our situation, at least it would be contingent on them, locking him up long-term. But like, there would have been nothing wrong with that. I mean, you're loaded in your pipeline. I mean, you've had 5 first-round picks in the last 2 seasons. You've used every pick. 4 of those guys are down either the AHL or, still in junior right now. And the only one of the 5 is Owen Power, who's playing 25 plus minutes a night for you.
Yeah. I mean, I still think though, like the right move with how the East has played out this year, is to protect those assets and go for it in the next, 3 to 5 years for a team like Buffalo that's really young. This isn't their window right now. So I wouldn't expect them to go out and make a move like that. Obviously you want to reward the team for the season they're having, but I think it was pretty smart of them to not attack the deadline.
Yeah. I mean, again, I was on both sides of the fence. When I wasn't like, a lot of fans are furious about Jacob Chychrun. I was when it happened because I was never a Jacob Chychrun guy because I always knew that it was going to cost a lot. And I wasn't willing to give up that much for a guy who, has been often hurt. Realistically is only probably like a 45 to 55 point defenseman a season, but would really fit well on your second pairing, which is something we desperately needed. But I wasn't willing to give up what Arizona wanted. And you've seen what they went for. It was like, what the fuck? Like we could have afforded that. We could have afforded to make that trade 3 times. And I think that's what had Buffalo really disappointed. A huge need. And instead you went and traded a blue chip prospect like Josh Bloom for Riley Stillman, which I still don't really understand. He had a terrible game. Everybody had a terrible game against Dallas, but him especially. But I mean, again, I agree with you. I'm fine with waiting. I just think Sabres fans, Buffalo fans are just so fed up with another year of saying, we'll get him next year, maybe next year, or the Bills are right around the corner. And I'm on both sides of that fence. I'm fine with the season ending with no playoffs because I know next year that they will potentially probably be in the mix. But I'm also disappointed because we're coming so close. We were right there. And, I guess for those people who want to win now, you just didn't make the right moves to get there now. So, but regardless, since Patrick Kane has kind of, since he's made his way to New York, how do you feel about his play so far? How has he gelled with the line he's been on? And, how has he added to that special teams?
I mean, I don't think he's been at his best in his first 3 games. The first 2 were pretty tough ones, losing to Ottawa, losing to Boston. I didn't get to watch much of the Boston game, and I only watched the first half of the Montreal game just because I was playing hockey both those days. But, for Kane, I think it's just going to take time, and he will gel, right? Like, it's Patrick Kane. He's not a hard guy to play with. So I think him and Panarin, as the games go on, they'll find that chemistry again. He's had a couple tough turnovers and hasn't looked great defensively, but that'll change in time. I'm still pretty confident when the games matter most, the mistakes will be limited. But yeah, I mean, I think, it's not what we've expected so far. He's got 1 goal in 3 games, an assist, I believe, as well. Hasn't necessarily lit it up, but I think in time he will.
Yeah, I don't think you gave up what you gave up though for him, even though it didn't end up being a lot. For him to perform now, it's come playoffs when he really when Showtime shows up, right? That's why you went and got him, because he's arguably been the top 3 best playoff performers of the last decade. Hart Trophy winner, Conn Smythe winner. I believe he won the Rocket once. I mean, the guy he just does it all in the playoffs. I mean, and it's a guy, I played against in spring travel here in Buffalo. And I remember, I've told this story once before. I remember this kid was touted to be, the next big thing in Buffalo since he was 8 years old. Like everybody knew this kid had the talent. His dad had him playing in multiple leagues, at a time. I remember there were times where he would play one period in one game and then leave the game, go to another rink to play another game. It was just his dad never had him not playing hockey. And I remember one game going up against him in spring travel. Like I was just like, I was all pumped up. It was like, I'm gonna shut the door on this kid. I don't care who he is. We were 12, 13 years old. Scores 3 times on me in one period, and he leaves the game and go to the rink. And I'm like, well, that didn't really work out. He went 3 for 6 on me. Kid was just always destined here in Buffalo to be the next big thing. And getting drafted first overall by Chicago after the short career he had with London. Just we are always so proud of the player he ended up becoming here in Buffalo. How could you not be? And we hope that Quentin Musty out of Hamburg here in Buffalo, who was drafted first overall by Sudbury in the OHL, he's draft eligible this year. We hope, he follows in Kane's footsteps and continues to make Buffalo proud here as well. Also a friend of the program. Johnny coaches his younger sister, who was a goalie. So, I'm happy for you guys. I got, if there was a team to get him, I'm glad it was you. The kid has just always, I still call him a kid. He's always just, been an incredible hockey player. And this year, sure, maybe it's a down year for him, but again, once playoffs come, it's over, in my opinion. Like there's just a switch he turns on and it's over.
I mean, I completely agree, but also, he hasn't really played playoff hockey in the last couple of years, so he's going to have to figure that out again, which I think he will. And the Rangers, I think, just have to find a way to be hard to play against. They have to battle. I think last year it showed against Tampa that it was like, varsity versus JV a little bit, and hopefully that experience kind of goes with them into this year, into this postseason. So, I do think, to your point, Kane's going to step up. He's going to not only be the performer on the ice, but that voice in the locker room as well that calms everybody down and says, listen, you guys have been here before. It's not the bit, it's not something to grip your stick a little too tight about. Just go out there and play your game, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you have a world-class goaltender in Shesterkin, who honestly, next to Vasilevsky, there's no other goalie in the world I'd want in net for me in the playoffs than him. The kid's going to be an absolute stud. That must be cool to go from Lundqvist to Shesterkin. That must be fun.
I mean,
meanwhile, it's been 12 years since we've had a legitimate starting goaltender in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Ranger fans are spoiled, that's for sure, as far as goalies go. So
yeah, it was like us with Hasek. We went from Hasek to Miller, with our bridge between the two was Baran for like a year. We were spoiled there for too, but to go from arguably the greatest Swedish goaltender that ever lived right over into Shesterkin, who again is your 1A or 1B to Vasilevsky. I'm a big, I mean, as a goalie, like I love watching goaltenders in the playoffs. I think, I've always felt bad for Carey Price because he was never able to be on a team in Montreal that was good enough, kind of like the way Hasek was with Buffalo, that was good enough to get them over the hump and win a Stanley Cup. I always felt the same way about, Montreal. And in some respects, no offense, the Rangers, because Lundqvist would play at an all-worldly level and they just could never get over that hump. I think things are going to be different with Shesterkin.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Completely agree.
Yeah. But I'm a big fan of Keandre Miller. I love his game. The guy, if I were to want any single defenseman to fit into what we have going in Buffalo, he was always, probably top 5 on that list for me. I'm a big fan of Keandre Miller. But transitioning from that, where do you see this game against Buffalo going today, coming off a 10-4 loss? You guys kind of still trying to, figure things out post deadline. Do you like this matchup against Buffalo? I mean, I know they got pumped for 10 one day ago, but do you like this matchup for them to kind of get themselves back on track? And how do you see this game going?
I mean, the Sabres have lost 5 of their last 6 games, not looking very good defensively, not scoring many goals as well for a team that's very offensive. The Rangers haven't announced a starter yet. The Rangers play the Penguins tomorrow, so I imagine Halak will get the nod in this game, which, gives Buffalo somewhat of an advantage, I would say. Not that Halak's been bad, but, obviously Shesterkin is the better option of the two. But, I do think the Rangers come out and hopefully they find their offensive firepower. They had some slow starts the last couple games. I mean, they let up a goal against Montreal in the first 5 not 35 seconds. So hopefully they have a better start. But, I see this one being a barn burner, like a, 6-4, 5-3, pretty high scoring game. I don't think both teams are very defensively minded. So should be a back and forth one, should be pretty high scoring, should be a lot of fun. Patty Kane playing at home in Buffalo with the Rangers for the first time. It should be a lot of Ranger fans, I would think. But, I think it's definitely going to be a fun game. Ryan Lindgren's still out of the lineup. That's a huge loss. Keandre Miller's back. We saw him in Montreal. And, I'm expecting a fun game, fun, high-scoring game, and, should be some back-and-forth action.
Yeah. Before we let you go here, too, you cover UMass hockey, correct? You do commentary?
Yep.
You got an opportunity to see our boy Levin Levi, was it a week or two ago, live. What did you think?
He's a stud, man. He played a really strong game. Northeastern actually came up short in that game, losing 3-2, but he made a couple sprawling saves. Like, this guy is never out of position. Even when you think you got him beat, you don't. I think when he eventually gets into the Buffalo organization, he could be the goalie that they've been looking for so long, like you said before. He seems like a very cool, calm, collected kind of guy. And, Northeastern's coach, I'm blanking on the name. I think Coach Keefe. What was it? Yeah, Coach Keefe. He was telling us that everyone in the room loves him as well. So that speaks a lot to him as a person, which is good for the city of Buffalo too. So a lot of things to be excited about as far as the future of goaltending goes for the Sabres.
Yeah, we just recently traded Eric Portillo's rights to the LA Kings. We got back the draft pick we used on him out of Michigan. So, it kind of clears the way for him. I know UPL has had an up and down season. A lot more highs this year than last season, when he did briefly play for Buffalo and in relief due to injury. But I agree, Devin, even though he's 6'1", on a good day, maybe 6'2", the kid doesn't let size hurt him. And he's had a phenomenal season. Hockey East Goalie of the Year, nominated for the Mike Richter Award. I'm not sure if he's in the conversations for the Hobie Baker Award this year, but again, just a something great to look forward to. I'd expected he would sign whenever Northeastern's season ends this year and probably play a few games in Rochester. And depending on how Buffalo's going, maybe you see him for a few games in Buffalo this year. You never know. That kind of tends with a player like him. At least in Buffalo, that's how it tends to shake out. You see those guys in the season in these games that might not matter. Hopefully that's not the case. But Johnny, just want to say thank you for hopping on with us. Unfortunately, Cully couldn't make it. I'll scold him later, but thanks for hopping on, bud. Appreciate it. If you guys want to check out Lazzy over the Blue Crew Pod, Dump Change at Dump Change Show on Twitter, and of course all of his work he does with Bleacher Report. Johnny, thanks for hopping on, bud.
Thanks, Duane. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. This has been episode 118 of Two Goalies, One Mic with Johnny Lazarus. Signing off, I am Duane for Cully. This has been brought to you by Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case on George Urban Boulevard. For all your Sabres game day, game night needs, get over to Outlet Liquor and quench your thirst. I am Duane. 3 words. Let's go Buffalo.